We have a special guest today on Go. We have Dr. Boyce Watkins. Let's go. The next election in 2020. You're independent, I assume.
Yes, I am.
I'm also an independent. How do black people get out the mess of, you have this one wolf, this Republican Party, who a lot of them tend to be overtly racist, right? And you keep on having a bad choice between this beast, this monster Republican Party, MAGA, and then you go over to the Democratic Party because they're so racist, right? But none of them, these two choices are not good choices for black folks, right? And the black vote really decides who's going to be in power. It will tip the scale of a divided white electorate, right? So what is the solution? How do we get out this mess where we don't love the Republican Party? We don't love the Democratic Party, a lot of us. We're not crip walking for the Democratic Party. We don't want to. We want something better.
I think that the way we get out of the mess is we can do one or two things, right? From a political standpoint, there is that option of having that party that's just all black. That doesn't mean that we can get a candidate in office per se, but it becomes a block where Jay Morrison has proposed this, where we actually have our own internal process of deciding who we support, almost the way the Teamsters might do. They get together, they talk about it, they all vote, or they communicate which candidate they think represents their interests the best, and then they offer an endorsement to that particular party based on that. Right? That's one option. What does that really do? I don't know how effective that is.
I agree with you. But first and foremost, I believe we need a philosophical adjustment. We need to understand that the oppression, the racism, the white supremacy, the discrimination, it's not a Republican or a Democratic thing, right? That both parties are suboptimal for where the black community wants to go. And the greed, listen to me, the greed that controls a lot of these politicians on right and left in black America, we need to understand how the game works. That the Democrats are being funded by, a lot of them are corporations, elites, and they are the part of the power system behind the politicians and leader. So you have a greed that is embedded within the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, and the entire system. The first stop on reimagining, I believe, the political landscape for black America is to understand that greed, corporate greed, including interests from foreign countries, is coming before the black vote. I believe, when you look at Cory Booker and Kamala Harris giggling with Netanyahu, and they're going to do all these speeches. They may do more speeches with those aligned with the interests of Israel than they do with those aligned with the interests of the black community. That's where they draw a lot of their financial and political support. And they will prioritize, I believe, the Jewish community over the black community. And so when you think about, hey, we vote, right? We have a bigger population, but why do these politicians take care of these smaller groups? Why are they prioritizing this other stuff? And so what black America, I believe, needs to think about is you have to evaluate the entire system in terms of how corporations, other countries, how these people influence and control the politicians. That it's a game, right? It's like a puppet show. And who's pulling the strings? And so the consciousness, I believe, of the black voter really needs to bang hard politically on removing the corporate and foreign interests out of politics.
I agree. I mean, I don't think, I wouldn't say that that's not a priority. I just, I think that when it comes to things like that, I tend to lean to other advisors because I've become so cynical of the political system that I see it and I just see it. It's so fucked up that it's just something where I don't know how in my lifetime I could change this beast of a,
So I'm not. It's kind of like I'm not. It doesn't matter who's in power, and kind of I'm going to do my thing.
It's not gonna say it doesn't matter. It's more like in terms of what matters most in my life. Who's in power doesn't have the dominant impact on what occurs, in my existence as a black man or black, if I were a black woman. I think that, to your point though, this idea that you got these black politicians, Kamala and Cory Booker, that, are kissing up to the Jewish community more than they kiss up to the black community. It does make you say, okay, well, why is that? And obviously it's money, right? The Jews are able to make financial contributions that are disproportionate to their percentage in the population. And black people, we feel that we're going to have an influence because we all voted. And so at the end of the day, black people lose because we don't have the massive numbers to really, really swing a vote. We can influence a vote to a point, but we don't have like Hispanic level numbers, right? So we can only influence that so much. And then financially, we can only do so much. So I think that when you talk about where you're putting your energy, I do agree with you that if it were possible to find some way to support a candidate that wants to get the money out of politics, fine, do it. I don't think it's going to be doable. I just don't. I just think that sometimes you get to a point where the beast has become so bad, so deadly, so infected that you can't pull the virus out of the beast. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe somebody could prove me wrong.
Why do you think the black Democrat establishment, the Congressional Black Caucus, why haven't black Democrats required the Democratic Party in their platform? They have like paragraphs written on Israel, for example. Why do you think black Democrats have never pushed for prioritizing our brothers and sisters in Africa in terms of trade, in terms of cultural exchange, in terms of support? Why haven't the black Democrats demanded that the Democratic Party has to prioritize the entire continent of Africa over Israel? That Israel has a big bullet point of priority in the Democratic Party platform. Africa does not have that priority. They start talking about wildlife. But why wouldn't the black Democrat require the Democratic Party to say, in terms of foreign aid, economic development, military support, that the country of Israel cannot get more support than the entire continent of Africa, where we are descendants of?
Because they're not, the members of the Congressional Black Caucus aren't really there to represent the interests of even the black people who voted for them. I think they see their base as being relatively unsophisticated, incapable of seeing the big picture. So if I'm a congressman or a senator and I was elected by black people, I can go back and I can make them happy by just, putting a statue up in the park or opening up a Little League football team. They're not going to really necessarily be concerned about, the weight of global politics. Like why are you doing more things for Israel than you are for Africa? You're going to have some of those black people who will say, yeah, who are smart like you, who are going to see that whole big picture. But what happens is in our community, ignorance is winning. So people like that get marginalized. There will always be fewer black people listening to me than there are who will listen to Cardi B, right? And you think, let's just think about that, right? Cardi B is this influential person who is very talented, but she became famous by, going on Instagram and talking about how well she can suck a penis, right? And so that just kind of speaks to, just sort of where we are as voters. We're not at this point, a very sophisticated voting base. Now, maybe in 50 years, we can be more sophisticated. That's why I think the educators have to fight the good fight and elevate the community's consciousness level. But it's going to take a while.
Well, the Democratic Party, the corporate Democrats, there's different, of course, segments in the Democratic Party, but the corporate elites who love a Bill Clinton, They love Barack Obama. They love Hillary Clinton. They don't love kind of Bernie Sanders. They don't love kind of some of the more progressive candidates, right? The more socialist candidates, the more populist candidates. So the corporate elites have made up their mind, at least in my view, is that we want to run either as vice president or as president, Cory Booker or Kamala Harris. And here's my theory on this. If I run a clean black politician, Ivy League, great credentials, super clean. If I run a Barack Obama, if I run a Kamala Harris, if I run a Cory Booker, right? These are people white folks are comfortable with. And I don't need to negotiate much with that black voter because so many black voters are going to go on the optics of, we got a black person on the team, we got a black president, we got a black vice president, that in the value exchange, if I put a black person out front, in terms of how a Democratic strategist, I think that they're thinking, these elites, is I can offer the black community less. If I have a white candidate, I may have to offer them more. I may have to do more. So in the perverse two-party system that's really centralized on greed and different sides of that greed landscape, corporate landscape, that the cheapest way to get a black voter in terms of what type of policies do I have to offer them is to run a clean black candidate. Because I don't have to offer that much. You guys are happy with the blackface.
That's true. It's very easy to get over on a person or group of people when they value flash over substance. Very easy. The Obama campaign mastered that. They knew that if they just had pictures of the family on the cover of Ebony magazine, that would go a long way. Or if he sang the Al Green song when he's giving a speech. Little things like that. They had Michelle Obama rapping, remember, like she was Beyonce or something. Like these are the things that they give to black people because black people don't really, we're not necessarily ready to play hardball politics, whether that changes or how fast it changes, I don't know.
But you do agree with that kind of disconnect in the political marketplace where when you play out the scenario of the Democratic Party and how things work, that when you run your scenarios, the cheapest way to get that black voter to turn out is to run a black one. And so actually, when you play this stuff out, a white Democratic candidate, you're probably going to get more criminal justice reform, more stuff if they run a white people. They got to do more. You do believe that. Generally, obviously, there's exceptions.
Right. I do think there's a trade-off. There is a trade-off in the sense that if you look at the Obama presidency, for example, I use that as a good example because it illustrates the point you're making it right there. We gave up something for the fact that we got the chance to look at somebody in office who looks like us. Because what that does, because everything you do, everything the politician does is he's trying to send a message to you that I'm on your side and I deserve your vote. So if it's a white guy, he's actually got to deliver something, a policy, some money or whatever. If he's black, all he's got to do is say, well, look, I'm black.
After Trayvon Martin, after that happens and some of these other police shootings, is there a less push towards the federal government in terms of calling for justice for the kids that are being killed by the police? Is the black men and women here in America, they hold back some because it's Barack Obama. If it's a white man, you guys are in the streets. You guys are in the streets banging against the president, and you're banging against America hard.
Yeah. Well, I think that, I think that what's interesting is that the Obama presidency set the tone for Donald Trump to feel comfortable ignoring black people because a lot of what Trump has said is actually what, Yvette Carnell actually said, and she was very right. Trump basically came back and said, look, what did Obama do for you? Why you get mad? Like that I did this. He didn't do this, right? And I remember Yvette saying this. This is back, when we used to work together more. But she said, if you don't ask this black president to help you or to do things for you, then the next white president's going to say, well, why are you asking me to do stuff? The black guy was in office and he didn't have to do half of this. So I think that we have to be very cautious about getting heavily involved in identity politics because it makes us look real stupid.
If you're interested in advertising on the Go podcast, you can go to moguldom.com/GHOGH. Once you're there, click on the advertising link. Let's get back to the podcast. So last month, the Israeli government murdered 20 Palestinians. Just murdered them. 20 Palestinians, and they murdered them. You do not hear Kamala Harris, who's been to Israel. You do not hear Cory Booker, who's been to Israel. Why won't these Negroes say something? Because now they're at the national level, right? Kamala Harris is in the Senate. They're speaking from a national foreign policy perspective now. They're at the heights of the political system. These are the Democratic Party stars, right? But why won't they, if they're really committed to justice and they talk about international issues, why do you think we haven't heard them condemn the Israeli government for killing 20 Palestinians?
I think that you asked that question because you know the answer, right? We know that they're owned. They're bought and paid for. The Anti-Defamation League and these Jewish organizations pretty much run and control a lot of politics. I think black people can learn a lot from the Jewish community in terms of how to have a lot of power that's disproportionate to your representation in the population.
Someone on the global stage, in terms of, when I look at some of the messaging that comes out from these corporate Democrats, they'll say little things to get black people kind of yay. So, they're very strategic in the messages they put out to the community to make the community think they're really for them, that they come first. So can you trust your politicians, Kamala Harris, Cory Booker, these type of politicians who white folks just love? Corporate Democrats, they just love. Those are those candidates, and they're positioning them for 2020. Can you trust a politician on justice for our people here in the United States? Where are they going to do the right thing in terms of, our kids and black men and black women being shot down in police and there's no justice? Can we trust them to do the right thing by the community and prioritize us if they're on the international stage and they won't even say anything about 20 innocent people being killed by Israel? Meaning that they may speak a few things here because they're going to get your vote. But you want to judge people in terms of their consistency, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that what they're going to probably do from a foreign policy perspective is they're going to represent the best interests of that segment of the United States that controls their actions and writes their checks, right? So I would say the best interest of the United States, but I don't think it's in the best interest of the United States. I think a lot of our foreign policy is built on, it's connected to corporate greed, it's connected to a type of arrogance, where we've done a lot of bad things all throughout the world in the name of the United States. And it's given us a lot of enemies, right? So I would say that in that situation, I think that what a Kamala Harris might be thinking or a Cory Booker is thinking is, well, yeah, it is sad that they killed these Palestinians, but there's nobody in the United States that is paying me to represent the interests of the Palestinians. Almost like a lawyer saying, well, I'd like to represent you, but you're not paying my fee. But I represent him because he's paying my fee. So the Jews are paying their fee. The Jews are the ones who are controlling damn near everything. And they got the game on lock because they got it to the point where they have the ability to label you as anti-Semitic just because you point out the fact that they're running the whole game. And so I think, overall, at the end of the day, it tells you a little bit about how politics works. It ain't about these people. To me, it's not about these people trying to do the right things. It's not even about these people really having any real control or any real say in what happens out of their office. If they don't do what the machine behind them is telling them to do, then the machine will replace them. It's like a CEO. If I'm the CEO of a corporation and my job, I've signed on to this job to maximize the wealth of the shareholders by engaging in a specific strategy, I have only so much space to deviate from that strategy. If I deviate too much, then what's going to happen? The board of directors is going to vote. The shareholders and the board of directors are going to get rid of me. They're going to replace me with somebody who plays ball the way they want you to play ball.
Did you vote for Barack Obama?
Yes. Yeah.
Both times?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't have any issue with Barack. I had
go ahead.
I had people that got upset with me because I told black people they don't have to vote for him. I told black people they should vote for whoever the hell they want to. And I think and then I told them they don't even have to vote. That your ancestors didn't die for you to vote for a Democrat. They died for you to have the right to choose.
What would you say to the black Democrat who would say, look, we get what you're saying, but if you do not vote, more of our people are going to be locked up, right? There's going to be more privatization of the prisons, that there's real consequences of you telling black people don't come out and stop Donald Trump, stop MAGA, that if you do not vote black man and woman, don't be crying when Donald Trump stops all the positive stuff Obama was doing as it relates to criminal justice reform and the prison system.
I say, you know what? Anytime you take a stand on anything, there's always a consequence. And so I flip that on the Democratic Party. I say, well, if you're upset that black people, because Cory Booker, do you remember Cory Booker blamed black people for Trump being elected? Yeah, and he said we brought it on ourselves. Okay.
Yeah, that's just pure sickness.
Right, and my thought is, no, I put that on the Democrats. If you had done more, black people would have felt incentivized.
We're voting 90% Democrat. Who's more loyal than the black Democrat?
Right.
You guys should be voting at 95. Well, you go tell white folks that.
Right. Or I think what they're saying is, even though we support the Democrats, that more of us should have just came to the polls. Right? It's one thing for me.
It's like that sense of entitlement. It sounds like what you're saying is like Democrats are just entitled to the black vote.
Yeah. Well, there is an entitlement, and I think ultimately, you're right. The Trump presidency has Trump has stunk up the place. It's not a fun thing to watch. It's a tough consequence for us to pay as a country for making a bad decision, whatever happened, right? But I will say this. If you notice, there's actually talk right now for the first time ever that the Democratic Party might include reparations as part of their platform. And why do you think that happened? That happened because the Democrats have said, we need black people to show up to this election. What do we need to do to be more sensitive to their needs so they're going to show up?
A small group of Democrats who are pushing that.
Right. Yeah. Those who wanted to do what was necessary to get black people out there. Right. So, my position on it is the reason people are so focused on the consequences of abstaining or the consequences of us taking a stand against democratic tyranny is because they're short-sighted. All they see is, oh my God, if we don't vote, then Trump will get elected. It'll be all your fault. And I had black people that got mad at me and said, no, you should have told black people to vote Democrat because it's your fault that Trump's in office.
I got to be honest, brother. I had a thought. I saw one of your messages and, I was really thinking about specifically certain policies that as soon as Trump got into office, he was going to pull back a lot of the positive stuff Obama was doing. In that there would be consequences of a low black turnout.
Right. There are always consequences when if you want a long-term gain, there will always be short-term consequences. And the reason black people can't move forward is because everybody want to go to heaven, but don't nobody want to die. Everybody wants to lose weight, but don't nobody want to go through the pain of being in the gym.
You're saying that Trump, in terms of, you were thinking this then, that maybe if Trump gets into office, the system is so bad, it's so messed up, that this would actually turn out to be a positive long term.
My belief was that if we let the Democrats know that we know we got a choice, we always have a choice. We don't have to show up and vote for you. I don't care if you tell me that, I'm going to die and the Republicans are going to make
give the Democrats Trump.
Right. F it. You don't give a fuck about. Right. You said f me. Well, you too. That's my whole position,
Yeah.
right? You know, seriously, think about this. It's easy to understand. Like,
Assuming that there's no nuclear war, or nothing really pops off.
Right.
In all honesty, it could be a net for the black men and women specifically in America, because Obama put a lot of you guys to sleep. You saw a black president. You saw Michelle. You started thinking MAGA. You started thinking America was great. We're beyond race. Man, America, these people have woke up. They're treating black people differently. America is different. Obama and Michelle, they pretty much said the same thing in terms of some of their speeches about America so fair. I can't believe that, the descendants of slaves are in the White House. America so gracious. America is MAGA. America is great. And I believe that Obama and Michelle, not intentionally, but they put a lot of black people to sleep in terms of this beast here in America.
Oh, let me tell you a story. I gave a speech right when Obama got inaugurated at a church in Long Island, and the choir director was leading black people to sing the song "We Shall Overcome." It was a Martin Luther King Day speech, and instead of singing "We Shall Overcome," they changed the words to "We Have Overcome." That's what they had people. And then when I was in the lobby, a lady came out with this beautiful portrait of Barack Obama, and it was an old lady. And I said, "That's a beautiful picture. Where'd you get that?" She said, "I just bought it in the lobby, and I'm going to take it home, and I'm going to put it right next to my pictures of Martin Luther King and Jesus." That was the mindset of black people. It's some coonish, backward, slave thinking. And you're right. We put ourselves to sleep, and Trump woke you up. And now you're
better off woke.
You are better off woke. Absolutely. We gotta. It's like, think about this. I asked black people. I said, so tell me, since Trump got elected, I know this upsets you, but I need you to tell me exactly what has changed in your life on a day-to-day basis as a result of Trump being in the White House, or the results of Obama getting elected. What has changed in your life? Did your kids suddenly go to a better school? Did you get a better job? Were you making more money? Were you happier, with your life? And the answer is no. There's nothing that they can point to tangibly that shows that Obama being in office or Trump being in office affects their life. The only way it affects your life is it affects your life almost like you're watching a movie. It's like if you have a favorite character.
Well, I can say it has impacted their life in a positive way, because a lot of you are more woke. A lot of you have all of a sudden developed a consciousness. A lot of you guys were getting money, and you started thinking America was this and that, and America was never this and that when Obama and Michelle were in office. So when you really analyze it, if Hillary Clinton went into office, a lot of you guys, particularly the Negroes getting money, Negroes who believe we're beyond race, you guys would still be asleep. Trump came, I believe, and he woke you up. You should have been woke before when Obama was in office. But you started thinking America was a lot better, a lot fairer, a lot less racist because Obama and Michelle were president. And that was a lie.
That's true. I think that complacency sets in when you're comfortable. Anytime any group of people has achieved progress, it's because the pressure of their situation, the pressure of their persecution led them to say, we can't live like this anymore. Black people,
meaning more revolutionary. Like, we can't keep on doing this little Democrat incremental Hillary Clinton. We need a revolution. There needs to be something big to shake this up.
Yeah, well, the thing about black people is that we are very good at finding a way to be comfortable in oppression. Like, we can survive in. We're a little bit like those, they have those different creatures that can survive in extreme temperatures, in extreme heat or extreme cold. We're kind of like that. Like it takes a while to put so much pressure on black people as a community that we decide to activate and actually do something. Whereas there's some people where they're, because they're used to living at a certain level. If you take one little thing away, like a billionaire, if you increase his tax rate by 0.5%, he's outraged. He's trying to sue you. He's trying to go and fight you. He's mad as hell because he's accustomed to a certain level of treatment and reward. Black people are accustomed to almost nothing. We're accustomed to zero. So anything you give us, we compare it to zero, which means that, it takes a while for us to get so rock bottom that we say, okay, I'm not living like this no more. And the reason that that's important, the reason that you have to have that pressure that leads to progress is that, it makes you think about when I became an entrepreneur. I was a comfortable Negro. I was making six figures. I was highly educated. There was a space for me in the system, but the racism on the job had to become so unbearable that I said, I don't even care if I'm homeless and broke. I'm quitting this job. I'm getting the up out of here. And then that led me to develop the skill to build a business, that I wouldn't have developed if they had treated me better. You see, if they had been nice to me, gave me the raises and the promotions I wanted, I wouldn't have left. Like in a relationship, how often are you madly in love with somebody and they're not treating you right, and you're putting up with this and putting up with that, and you're tolerating a whole bunch of shit, and then you hit that point where you hit rock bottom and you're like, I got to go. Either that, or maybe they even put you out against your will. They dump you and you're begging this person to let you back in because you don't have anywhere else to go. But then what happens, right? You're forced to adjust. Now they're not an option for you anymore. Now you have to look and see what else the world has for you. And then next thing you know, 6 months later, you meet somebody, you fall in love, and you look back and you say, oh my God, if I had never been forced out of that other situation, I wouldn't be in the situation I'm in now. Hallelujah. So you realize that you have to go through the discomfort of change to experience a better reality. Black folks don't like that. They don't want to hear that. So that's why when I speak, about half of the black people in the room get offended because people don't want to go through the pain that leads to the gain.
You teach a lot of financial literacy, and you're taking it to the masses. Do you touch on, one thing that I feel like culturally our community needs a lot of education on? There's room to optimize the culture in terms of how we think about something as simple as autos, particularly, a lot of folks thinking, they need a quality of car that they probably don't need. Hey, just in terms of growing up, that black consumer, I want a BMW, I want a Mercedes, I want an Audi. And in contrast to, for example, one of my friends, he used to say, I want to own my car. I'm going to get a Honda Accord or a Toyota, something that has a low repair and maintenance cost in the United States, and I'm going to own it. I'm not going to have a car payment, right? And so that's like one side. Like, I'm going to get a used car. It doesn't cost a lot of money. Either I'm going to buy it or I'm going to finance a small amount to pay off this $3,000 Honda Accord, at least at the time. This is my friend. And so it's very different from, like, let's say 9 other guys, right? 9 other guys, they want the Audi, they want the BMW, they want the nice car, right? That's at like a 5 or 6x multiple of what my friend would buy his car for. So, with the black consumer, as it relates to autos, how much do you talk about eliminating the whole idea that you need a car payment in your monthly budget?
In the Black Business School, one of the things that I think that we do very, very well is we talk about life more than we talk about just, straight money management, right? Because we believe money is life and that your whole life is an investment, or an investment opportunity anyway, right? So we talk about investments that you make in terms of time, investments you make in terms of love. Anything that happens in a love relationship can actually be analogized to an investment transaction. All the concepts, diversification, risk return, all that stuff can be actually linked to the things that we experience on a daily basis. And it's easy to convert that over into money because money is one of the things that people think about the most in their lives. So with that said, to your point, when we get into a conversation about whether or not you feel like you need a car note or what kind of car you choose to buy, that's really done kind of within the broader conversation of saying, what are your goals? Like, what are you trying to do? Where are you trying to get to? How are you trying to find freedom in your life? The goal is not money. The goal is freedom, right? And to get freedom, you don't always need a lot of money, right? There are poor people who are freer than some rich people, right? But money can be a tool for freedom if you apply it in the right way. So I might say to somebody, I'm not big on condemning a choice. I can't
not really condemning a choice, but if Negroes are going to say, our community doesn't have any money, we don't have this. We don't have that. White man's doing this. White man's doing that. And that person is driving around in a BMW, paying a high finance charge. And to the point that I get what the white man's doing. I get what America's doing. I get what elite's doing. I'm going to bang against them, right, when justified. But what can we be doing in terms of being smarter, being disciplined in terms of our own behavior? Meaning, how many people do you know, for the audience, how many people do you know, black, who had the ability to pay for a low-cost car, but chose to pay for a high-priced car so you could feel good, you want to floss, you want to look good, and essentially we start sending the money to communities who are going to invest and most likely who are going to oppress. And so whether it's the finance company that will take advantage of your lack of discipline in terms of, they probably love to see a lot of black consumers who stretch themselves maybe more than other consumers. But I feel like on a consumer level, there's a lot of room for improvement in terms of how we think about just something as basic as kind of car and transportation in our budget. Just to clarify, I'm not against having a nice car, but I do know that a lot of smart and wealthy people, they're going to buy a used car, right? Ain't going to use that money. They're going to own a car, and even if they have to finance initially, and they're going to use the excess money to invest.
Yeah, well, my position on the car is that it's harder for me to just tell you that that's a bad decision because I don't know what your taste is. I don't know what trade-offs you're willing to make.
You can't say that, hey, if you're making, a certain amount, or you don't own a home, you don't have a brokerage account, you don't own a home, you don't own a piece of a business. You can't say that, hey, it's probably unwise for you to be driving around in a 70,000 Benz.
Yeah, I don't particularly use that particular approach, right? It doesn't mean that I don't agree. It just means that I want you to at least understand the trade-offs. It's like when Kanye West was talking about having a choice, right? And people got mad because it was slavery. And I said, well, actually, technically, anything that happens in your life, you have a choice, right? So what I mean by that is you have a lot of people who might be driving, the expensive car, living life on the edge financially, not making good financial decisions. And you say, well, you're on 5 medications now because your stress level is so high. And they say, well, why are you going through that? They say, well, because it's my job. It's the racism on my job, man. White man got me down. He's doing this and doing that to me. And you say, well, why don't you quit your job? He'll say, I don't have a choice. And you say, well, why don't you have a choice? Well, because I got to make the car note payment. I got to pay for this and pay for that. I got to pay for the beach house. I got to pay for this and, all these other things, right? I got to pay 4 babies, mamas, all that. And so what you're really saying is you're not really telling me you don't have a choice. You're telling me that you locked yourself into a situation where you don't have a choice. You chose to constrain your life by deciding that you wanted to drive that Mercedes for $600 a month when you could have got you a car for $150 a month, right? You chose to sleep with those women and create those babies mamas and all those child support payments, when you could have chose to put a condom on your ass, right? So, my point at the end of the day is that I think that conversation can be had where I can say to their brother, I can say, look, I'm not going to tell you what to choose. I just need you to know where you're pulling all the levers so you don't go through life thinking that you're in this box and it's a box that, somebody else created. Because some people will do that. People will ruin their own life and then act like somebody else did it. Because why? Well, because that victimhood, that victimology is taught at an early age, and so, the hardest thing to explain to black people in general, I think, for a lot of people, not even just black people, it's true for a lot of people, is that, your life is something that you made. It's something you chose. It's something you created. You have a lot of say in this. And people don't really want to hear that. They want to kind of hear you tell them, no, all of these bad decisions you're making, all these bad moves you're making, it ain't your fault because you're oppressed. It's the white man's fault. That's why I don't think liberals are helping black people when they do that, right? So I think that's the conversation I would have. But I agree with you though.
Do you believe the masses of our people here in the United States, they believe millionaires drive fancy cars? Do you believe that the masses believe that net?
I do.
Most of the masses.
I believe the masses believe that. Yes.
Do you believe that that's true?
I haven't seen studies on it.
Okay.
I do know that there are millionaires who drive fancy cars, right?
Yeah.
But I do know a lot of millionaires who don't drive, right? Because of what you were saying. Like,
Yeah. One study that was conducted, and it was highlighted in a book called The Millionaire Mind, I believe. And my friend brought this to my attention several years ago. They did a study of millionaires, and the study came out and said that most millionaires drive used cars. And what's going on there is that they wanted to wait for the depreciation of the car to not go down as fast, right? So after 2 years, that's the period that at least the people in this study, they were going to go in and buy the car. They're going to let the person kind of, hey, drive off in your fancy car, look all great, have your emotions kind of really, go on an emotional high. But after 2 years, when that car's used, then I would go in and buy. And at least according to this study, said that most millionaires have used cars and buy used cars. But in terms of growing up in the black community, being around black people, I think, and kind of, when you look at the media, it looks like, hey, if you got a little extra money, you got to have a nice car. Or millionaires, they're buying luxury cars. That's something wealthy people do, and I want to look wealthy.
That goes back to an idea that we talk about sometimes called what I would call financial efficiency, right? That study doesn't say millionaires don't drive luxury cars. It says millionaires don't buy new luxury cars, right? Right. So efficiency says if you spend $30K on a car, you're going to get a car that's brand new and spend $30K. I'm going to get a nicer car and spend the same $30K, but it's going to be 2 years old, so I'm not paying for bullshit, right? I'm not paying for, that money you lose just by driving it off the lot, all that depreciation that occurs in the first year or two. I'm going to take all of that out, and I might still spend the same as you, but I'm going to be driving a much nicer car.
But they're millionaires, though. So I guess the big picture, as I see it, is that millionaire is probably spending the same amount on cars as you, making, maybe 40 or 50 in their approach in terms of targeting used cars at least 2 years old, that like the ratios are out of whack in terms of ratio to income, ratio to wealth, meaning that when you run those numbers, a lot of the auto-related consumer behavior is out of whack, meaning that a lot of us are getting into consumer financing, consumer leasing, getting into cars that we probably shouldn't be in. So why does this matter? Is because when you think about the financial stress that our people are in terms of how do we get out of this mess, and you break down that individual's budget, that auto budget is consuming a lot in the black wallet, the black budgets. And so that's something that you don't need another man to change. You don't need America to change. You don't need Donald Trump to do anything. You don't need the Democrats to do anything. But when you look at that budget, that auto expense, that's something that I feel like we can optimize within our culture.
Yeah, I think that, at the end of the day, I don't think we want to get to a point where we want everyone to believe that, the reason that we have some of these issues is because we want nice cars, or even because I used to have a different opinion, for example, on the purchase of Air Jordan.
In terms of how do we get out the mess, how do we get out of our mess? I'm just saying, yeah. How do we get out the mess? I'm just saying, like, hey, what can we optimize that's in front of us? That's financial, that's involved with the budget. And what can we attack ourselves? And when you're looking for excess, right? So if you're, as a business, hey, the revenue's not coming in as I had forecasted it. What are we doing that is like we have a surplus?
Well, let me tell you a secret. I spend like a fool when I want to. I don't give a when I want something, I go buy it. And so I'm not going to have anybody tell me I can't have, if I want to get I wouldn't buy $200 Jordans, but if I wanted to buy $200 Jordans, I would do it. Why? Because I don't think that you have to think about wealth building all the time. simply or just from a scarcity, sort of standpoint where it's like, okay, we got to cut this and cut that, and this is where we're wasting money. What I think people want to know is it goes back to choice, right? So when I was looking at my budget back when I was working on the plantation and I was making a certain amount of money, and I said my budget is stretched, I don't have any money to save. I said, okay, I can cut this, and I was like, but I don't want to cut this. I can cut that. Well, I don't really want to cut that. And then I said, wait a minute. I don't have to just cut what I spend. I can increase what I make, right? So that means that I chose to, I said, okay, I'm going to make an investment. I'm going to make an investment to go read books on how to make extra money, how to be an entrepreneur, how to get a side hustle. So that now, remember, spending, say, $7,000 a month is a lot of money if you're making $7,000 a month. But spending $7,000 a month is not a big deal if you're making $12,000 a month, right? And so what I think that we can do, and I agree with you though, I think that in terms of spending, if you hold everything constant, right? If the income stays flat and you're on the plantation and you're getting whatever the plantation gives you, then yes, you're stuck in a scarcity mindset. Like you're in a jail cell and it's you have to make space. So you got to take something out in order to have more room. But why not get you a bigger space to operate in so you have a little more leeway? And I think that's where we lose when we're not teaching our kids to be business owners. We're not teaching them how to be investors. We're not teaching people how to get side streams of income. We're not really, really pushing education at the highest level so you can get, if you're going to get a job, you can get the highest paying job, right? So I think overall, your point is right? Like everything else held equal, it doesn't make sense to buy a new car.
Let me clarify. It could make sense to buy a new car if you're into new cars and, hey, you have other priorities taken care of first, meaning that, hey, I have life insurance, right? I'm paying whatever I have to pay to have life insurance, or I'm going in the direction of owning home ownership, or, I'm investing in stocks. Like you have these other things ahead of, hey, I want to floss in a Lexus. You have these other priorities in front of, I need that BMW so I can floss.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, the thing about money that leads to so much waste is that many of us are trained to look at money in the wrong way in the first place. At an early age, you're taught that money is something you use to give it away so you can get stuff. So your relationship with the world is already fucked up from the beginning because you're thinking that whenever I get any money in my hand, I'm supposed to trade and the world gives me stuff and I have no more money.
And let me just say, I'm not going all Bill Cosby in terms of talking about the community. I know about this because when I had a great job in college. I was promoted to a housing director for hundreds of students, and I have thousands of dollars rolling in. I lived in the projects up until I was 12. I'm very close to kind of the streets, black culture. The first thing I want to do is what? I start making good money in college. What do I want to do? I want to go get a nice car. I want to floss in a car, right? And so I believe if we had the financial education culturally in terms of this is passed down in terms of this is how you do things. You need to methodically think about these decisions that go on in life in terms of when you get a car, do you lease or finance a car? What kind of, how much car can you afford? What are the kind of pros and cons that I see that if I had more financial education, I would think about things very different. Going into my adult life after college even. And I'm just saying that, nothing to do with America, nothing to do with corporations. The finance companies and the auto companies, they have millions of dollars thinking about how to exploit consumers, not just black consumers, but consumers. But specifically, they do optimize their marketing to hook you, the subprime auto lenders, the auto manufacturers, that they have specific optimization strategies to hook you into getting you into something you don't need, to hook you into a 20% interest rate, a 30% interest rate, to hook you into a car that you don't need.
Yeah, well, I think you're right. I think that we get fooled. I mean, black people and poor people are the biggest targets of all the most abusive marketing practices that there are, right? Predatory, whether it's predatory lending, unhealthy food, silly consumer items, they advertise to us the most. Now, why would they do that? Well, they tend to choose their victims based on
vulnerability.
The same way.
You guys don't have a lot of educated fathers and mothers teaching you guys about financial literacy.
Right.
We don't want it in the schools either.
Like Bill Cosby, Bill Cosby, when he picked his victims, he didn't pick, every woman. He picked certain women that fit specific criteria.
Yeah.
Right. So for us, we got to say, why do we keep fitting the description of the group of people that everybody wants to victimize? And who's going to change that? Right.
Yeah. Now when do we come off the crack?
Right. So we could say, okay, well, let's wait. We need white people to change that. They need to do a better job of monitoring themselves and stop doing what white people have done for 500 years, which is pretty much raping and pillaging the entire world. I'm not waiting for that. I think that as black people, there are people that get it, and my goal is to talk to those people and to say, okay, let's figure out some defensive strategies so that we can make sure that this doesn't happen to our kids. At least this won't happen to your children. It's going to happen to somebody's black child somewhere for the rest of your life, most likely, but it won't be happening to your kids. And that's the most that we can aim for, I think.
I want to thank Dr. Boyce Watkins for coming on Go. Dr. Boyce, can you point the audience to the Black Business School and where they can check you out online?
Yeah. People can actually check out the Black Business School and actually get started for free at theblackbusinessschool.com. That's theblackbusinessschool.com.
Thanks, everybody, for listening to Go. You could check me out at Jamarlin Martin on Twitter, and also come check us out at Moguldom.com. That's Moguldom.com. Be sure to subscribe to our daily newsletter. You can get the latest information on crypto, tech, economic empowerment, and politics. Let's go.